You've just worked through this really incredible promise that God makes to Abraham unilaterally, that there are no stipulations for Abraham. God simply promises to him that he will have land, descendants, and a blessing. The rest of Genesis from that point on is this kind of mini-series drama, I guess you could say, that continually points to threats to this promise, threats to the promise of land, descendants, and a blessing. I'm going to work you through some of those right now. They're really kind of fascinating. So, one of the primary threats that we see in this continuing narrative is barrenness. Even though Abraham is supposed to have so many descendants, we keep hearing about a matriarch being barren, not being able to have children. And Sarah, of course, is the very first one who is barren and not able to provide children for Abraham, even though he's supposed to have all of these descendants. Then, when Abraham finally does have a child, Ishmael, through Hagar, Sarah's servant, Ishmael is exiled. And so that son is not going to be the one through whom the promise is kept. So we're still wondering about descendants. Then Isaac takes the place of Ishmael and becomes the son through whom all these descendants are going to arise. But God asks Abraham to kill Isaac. And that's all within the realm of the descendants promise. In the realm of the land promise, we notice as you continue through this story that Abraham and his descendants are living as semi-nomads. That means that they don't own any land. God has promised descendants and land, and yet it's really hard to get a grasp on either one of these. And by the time we get to the end of Genesis, Abraham still doesn't own any land other than the plot of land where Sarah is buried. So this is really a very questionable promise. Is Yahweh going to come through? Which is why I've been telling you it would make a good mini-series. We're not going to do that, unfortunately. But we are going to do this. So the continuing story. Eventually, the promise of descendants does come to fruition. So Abraham and Sarah have a son named Isaac. Abraham doesn't actually end up killing Isaac, and instead Yahweh provides a ram for Abraham to kill. And Isaac marries Rebekah, who also is barren. Then eventually she has 2 boys, but they fight all the time and they want to kill each other. So yet another threat to this promise. How is this promise of so many descendants going to actually pan out? Then Jacob has a lot of trouble getting married. First, he marries a woman that he doesn't like, named Leah, and then he marries Rachel, the woman that he is interested in. He also has sexual relations with with Leah and Rachel's slave women. This is all very troubling, but I'm going to try to stick with the theme of the threat to the promise and not really get into the ethics of sleeping with your slave women, even though it's horrific. So Leah, the one that Jacob doesn't like, has a bunch of sons, and Rachel, the wife that Jacob does like, has 2 sons. And then Zilpah and Bilhah also bear some children to Jacob. So really, it's not until Jacob that we finally see this promise of descendants begin to be filled out. Up until that point, we are continually wondering, my goodness, we've got these barren people. When is this going to actually happen? All right, so a couple of themes that I want you to remember as you're working through the end of Genesis. The people of God are in Canaan, but they're still wandering. So they don't really have the land the way that they want to. The matriarchs are consistently barren. We see just the struggle with the mom. Who is going to be the mom that brings forth the child that will continue this promise? And then we also see both Abraham and Isaac do this thing where when they interact with another king, they try to hand off their wife to the other king by saying, this woman is my sister, so you can go ahead and marry her. So that's going to bring into question this covenant as well. If if Abraham gives away Sarah, how is he going to have descendants? So, like I said, a mini series, a drama. Also, things keep getting mixed up, and the younger son keeps being the one through whom the promise is going to come. So Isaac is the one through whom the promise comes. He's younger than Ishmael, and Jacob is younger than Esau. And so however God is working out this promise, it is through a lot of finagling and human error and barrenness and sibling rivalry and things like that. And it doesn't happen exactly the way you expect it to happen. And then finally, we've got these just kind of unsavory characters that keep showing up, and they're tricksters. That's how I want you to think of them. And people keep fooling one another. So you've got Jacob fooling his brother. You've got Laban fooling Jacob. You've got Rebekah fooling Isaac. And it's just this, I mean, this narrative is not where you want to go for like a family therapy session. So I'm going to leave you with that, and then we'll move into the Joseph novella.